there's a lot of turmoil in the job market. I think a math major is just very flexible and it
hmm
makes me think abstractly. And I think those are skills that are valuable to a lot of different fields. It's a way to just keep my options open.
Welcome to Quadcast. I'm your host, Ina Effress. Today's guest is Hugh Cheng. Hugh is a freshman at Stanford who intends to major in math. He plays alto saxophone for various student music groups on campus, writes problems for the Stanford Math Tournament, and is a member of the Taiwanese Cultural Society. Welcome, Hugh.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So, tell me about writing problems.
So Stanford Math Tournament is a tournament for high schoolers. And so every year they have an annual competition where a bunch of high schoolers come up in teams and they solve a bunch of problems that we write for them. And it was actually something that I participated in myself as a junior, I think, in high school. And so I thought it was kind of a cool way to it's coming full circle, like me as a participant and then as someone who's helping organize the event. I really enjoy my role in the tournament, which is writing problems, because I felt like what I really enjoyed a lot in high school was solving these math competition problems that really just felt like fun puzzles. And so, being on the other side of that, like being able to lay out a cool problem is really rewarding. And I think it's definitely a different type of thinking and creativity that's involved than solving a problem.
How do you come up with the problems? Is there some kind of resource you go to? Tell me about your process.
Yeah, I mean that's still something that I'm trying to figure out as a novice problem writer. I think there's a lot of different strategies. Like it could come from things you observe in the real world, or it could come from just like other concepts in math. I guess, for example, there was just one time when me and a friend were just playing with some markers on a table and we were spinning them around, and we just figured like, I wonder what the probability is if you'd have these two markers and you rotate them randomly that they'll intersect, and then that was just a problem that ended up being written. So the inspiration can really come from anywhere.
Is there someone in the competition who accepts the problems or revises them? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's kind of a community effort. So there's a team of problem writers, and we have a platform called Compose where we just submit our problems, and then we can review each other's problems and endorse them and rate them, give feedback. There's a lot of layers involved, I think, in like making sure these problems are high quality and they have high quality solutions and they're not like trivial, but they're not too difficult.
It's pretty amazing that you wanted to continue doing this as a service for others after you participated in high school.
I mean, math competitions were a big part of what I did in high school, and they're a big reason why I like math. And I think maybe if I could play even like a minor role in inspiring that same kind of passion in another younger student, I think that's really valuable and meaningful for me.
I really want to talk to you about the saxophone, and I'm so thrilled that you're continuing to play at Stanford.
Yeah, I've been really lucky to be able to continue. I think one thing that really surprised me when I came here is like, or I'm playing way more than I expected, which I think is a good thing. So I'm involved in the Stanford Jazz Orchestra as an alto saxophonist. I'm in the jazz combos. Last quarter, I took a class called Music 120E, which was taught by Ambrose Ekin, who's a great trumpet player. And that was a really cool experience. I'm involved in some student bands. There's a jam session every night at Coffee House, which I've been a regular attendee. I've been also playing in some musicals, mostly because of the efforts of Harvard Westlake alum Simon Lee. He has been coaxing me to join his productions. I've had a lot of very musical experiences here, which I'm really grateful for. And I think that's a nice way to round out my academic life.
Wow, what's it like playing in a musical?
Yeah, I've never played in one before. I think my two musical experiences so far have been pretty unconventional. The first one was a 48-hour musical that was actually directed by Simon Lee. And the idea was like they all get in a room 48 hours before the musical is supposed to be performed. And then that's the first time the musical is being worked on. So they develop the plot and the costumes and the set, and they compose all the music, and they memorize all the lines in 48 hours, which I think is really impressive. I just played saxophone for that.
So, and were you involved in the preparation or was your playing mostly improv?
I mean, relative to what other people had to do, I did not do that much work for the musical. I just read the
Mhm.
music that they composed. It was definitely a new experience, definitely different from anything I've done before. Being in the pit And then the second musical I played was for a cabaret, which was more traditional, I think. We had weekly rehearsals for like 6 weeks leading up to the musical. And I think it definitely helped my sight reading.
It's really cool. Can we also talk about the Taiwanese Cultural Society?
For sure. That's just an affinity group with a lot of Taiwanese people. I've been pleasantly surprised with the volume of Taiwanese people on campus. And it's just cool that I get to spend time with some people who have some shared cultural experiences with me. A lot of the clubs here have a tradition where they do rollouts and they like knock on your door really early in the morning and then they all like play really loud music and you get to walk around with them and knock on other people's doors who are in the club. And so I think the STAT experience was like a cool community bonding experience that I got to meet a bunch of Taiwanese people. And I remember one of them like started singing this Taiwanese song that I recognized from my grandma's playlist. And I was like, wow, I've never heard that anywhere else before. So it's like really cool to experience that.
And do you guys do events together on and off campus?
Yeah, there's been a couple dinners I've had which have been paid for by the club, and I've just gotten to like meet other Taiwanese people. And I think this spring we're going to be organizing a night market. We're going to have a bunch of like Asian food vendors come on campus and student performers. My role for that event is I'm going to be operating the bollards that allow vehicles to enter certain restricted parts of campus. I think I'm going to have some fun with that.
Let's move on to math. You were deciding between MIT and Stanford, and you pretty much knew that math was going to be a big part of your future. What made you decide to pursue it at Stanford?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of quality of education, I think the the math departments are both exceptional at both schools. So really the deciding factor was like everything else. I think at MIT, at a school like MIT, it just felt a lot more homogenous and thought I could find more diverse perspectives at Stanford. But I was definitely very indecisive between the two schools. I was vacillating between them for like a month. There are things about MIT that I liked. Like I thought it would be really cool to be in Boston, in the
Mm.
college town. And then I also thought maybe the weather wouldn't be as great in MIT. There are a lot of decisions that went into it. The story I like to tell is that it was like 2 days before decision day, and I didn't have a college sweatshirt to wear for college sweatshirt day. So my mom just ordered both the MIT and Stanford sweatshirts, and then only the Stanford one came. So I was kind of forced to wear that one. And
Is that
uh,
true?
this did happen. I think I was committed to Stanford at that time.
And did Stanford meet your expectations? Tell me about that a little bit.
It's nice to be around students who are not all studying STEM, even if I'm studying STEM. My roommate is a theater major, and I think he's awesome. I think we're pretty different in most aspects, but I think we're compatible. And it's just nice to hear like he's doing something completely different from me. It's just cool that there's so many people doing cool things that I might not be able to see at a school like MIT.
Did you pick your roommate or did you let Stanford pick for you?
So as a freshman, everyone gets paired with a roommate that they don't get to decide. There's kind of like a form that you get to fill out. It kind of worked out because I think both me and my roommate kind of stretched how clean we would be and how early we would wake up. So, um, I think it worked out like that.
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
truth was compatible.
Yes, yes. And the lie.
That's great. Um, is there anything that didn't meet your expectations and sort of surprised you in one direction or another that kind of hit you in the face when you got there?
I guess one thing that shocked me was the sheer volume of bicycles on campus. I remember when I was a senior in high school and they had like the admit weekend events, I could go on campus during the quarter
Mhm.
and I was just it was very scary to enter the street. Like I thought if I touched the asphalt, I would just get obliterated by oncoming traffic. And so that was definitely an adjustment, but I think I love my bike. To my mom's dismay, I've learned how to ride with no hands. And so I've been doing that a lot.
I love that. Tell me about your classes. Are there any math professors that you've gotten to know, or are the classes too big at this point?
Okay, it depends on the class. There was one class I took in fall quarter called Things About Stuff, which is kind of an unconventional class. It's an electrical engineering class taught by this professor Thomas Lee, who is really amazing. And it was like 14 kids. There's like an application process involved. The point of this class was it was both to explain the history of some Silicon Valley inventions in kind of this like non-traditional way, that kind of like examined like all these different butterfly effect factors that produce these inventions. And also the other half of the class was just to learn lab skills. So I would just learn how to solder and learn how to use a breadboard and wire things and a bunch of other cool things that I probably would not have seen before without this class. And I mean, that was a really tight knit class, I think. And we've had like a reunion dinner this quarter. And so I think he's gotten to know us that way. I also took a math class last quarter, which was called Math 62 CM. And it's the hardest class I've ever taken in my life, probably. But it was really rewarding. And the professor um, is kind of a super genius. It was really cool that he has office hours that you could just go to, and there won't be that many people there, and you get to talk to him one on one and ask him questions. So yeah, I just think that opportunity is really special.
What is so hard about that class? What kind of math is it?
Okay, so this class covers a lot of different topics. I think it starts with like differential forms, and then it goes to multilinear algebra, and then somewhere along the way we prove Stokes theorem, and then the last few weeks are an introduction to topology. So I don't really know what this class would be called in a different university, but it was just a lot of challenging concepts that were very rigorous. And also, I think a lot of the results that came out of it were really beautiful, things that I definitely have never seen before, of course. But it's just really rewarding to look back and see, like, week one, I didn't even know what a differential form is. And now I can do all these operations with it. And I know all these cool things that can branch off of it.
When you say there were results that were really beautiful, what does that mean in mathematics to you?
That's a good question. I think a lot of pure mathematics does not really have a practical application. I don't think I know that much math in the grand scheme of things. And so I'm still learning new things and I don't really know what they are applied for. But there are just some things that I think are elegant. I guess one example that I learned in the last 3 weeks from this class is like if you have a, a disk and you have a function that maps the disk to itself and is continuous, then there's guaranteed to be at least one point that maps to itself, which I think sounds like it's not a very difficult statement to like understand, but but the work to prove it, it requires a lot of machinery that I think
Mm.
is not intuitive at all. It's just like something about proving something difficult is very satisfying.
The kind of math that you're doing and the pure math that you're learning, since it doesn't have a lot of practical applications, what will you do with your math degree, do you think? Do you have an idea right now, or are you still exploring?
Yeah, I'm still exploring. I guess I should clarify that like that particular theorem I mentioned, I think has practical application in like
Okay.
economics or something. But I haven't gotten to a point where the math has gotten abstracted enough to be completely devoid of application. But I think eventually that might happen. I'm still not really sure what I'd like to do in like 10 years. And I think, there's a lot of turmoil in the job market. I think a math major is just very flexible and it
Mhm.
makes me think abstractly. And I think those are skills that are valuable to a lot of different fields.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
think it's a way to just keep my options open.
You have a sense of humor about everything, like whether it's riding your bike or math equations or knocking on people's doors to tell them they're a part of the club. You have a positive outlook on everything that you do. And I think because you have such an open mind to it, sometimes when people think of mathematicians, they don't think of someone who's has such an open mind. So that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you is so other students and families can see what's possible.
Love
And
it.
math doesn't have to be so rote because at Stanford, there's so many classes where you're using these different parts of your brain. Yes, there is like a beauty and elegance to solving equations, but there are other parts of your brain that come into play. I love those 2 classes that you mentioned. So the class that you had to apply to with the 14 students,
Things about stuff.
things about stuff. Do you still keep in contact with that professor or those students at all?
Yeah. So that's a very specific type of class called an introductory seminar. And
Mm.
all the intersebs get like some funding to have student dinners with the professor. we've had one of those last quarter where we all went to this Pakistani restaurant and we just caught up with each other. It was a nice experience, and I think we might have a couple more in the future.
Glad you brought up the quarter system. How do you feel about the Stanford term schedule? Do you think that it's manageable in terms of your course load?
Yeah, I think, well, I've only been here for 2 quarters, but my current impression of it is that I really like the pacing. If there's a class that I don't enjoy as much, at least it's over quicker. And I guess there's the other side of that coin where sometimes I wish classes would last a little longer. It's been going pretty well so far.
And besides going out to the Pakistani restaurant with the seminar, do you go out into town or is most of your activity and nightlife on campus?
I think I spend most of my time on campus. I mean, there are definitely people who go out a lot more than I do, but I think the campus is already pretty big and there's a lot to
Mhm.
do. But I have gone into Palo Alto a few times. Recently, I've been trying to just find new study places off campus, and sometimes I
Mm,
would just go to like a random coffee shop in the middle of
mhm,
Palo Alto, and that's always very very serene, and it's
mm.
a definitely a change of scenery.
Why are you looking for outside study spots?
I wouldn't like to be in the same place every time.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely something I've been better about in fall quarter, where I would just basically every day I'd force myself to visit like a new library or a new study area or just a new corner of campus.
And has it been really easy to make friends?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still figuring that out in my freshman year. It's been really nice to find communities in my freshman dorm because it's definitely a closer community than I would have imagined. There's a lot of events that get scheduled. There's a weekly house meeting that everyone goes to. So I've also found a lot of community in music. So all the student groups are definitely like a natural source of friendship. And also the clubs and organizations are just a great way to find people. So there's definitely friends I have from my math classes and from Stanford Math Tournament and from Taiwanese Cultural Society. So all of that is kind of where I find my community.
Is there something you want to promote? Any upcoming shows?
If you're a high schooler, and it's probably too late this year, but next year, should sign up for Stanford Math Tournament. There's also a middle school math meet as well in the fall, Stanford Math Mini Meet. And also, if you happen to be near Stanford on May 23rd, 5 to 7 p.m., there's a there's a night market hosted by Taiwanese Cultural Society. I'll be operating the bollards, and we have a concert next quarter with the Stanford Jazz Orchestra with the great vibraphonist Ward Wolf from SF Jazz.
I really thank you for talking to me and letting everyone know about what's good on Stanford campus and beyond. I'm so happy to see how well you're doing too. It's really a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.